Today I'm going to read you Welcome Comfort by Patricia Palaco. This is Miss Jean's book she let us borrow, but our library has a ton of Patricia Palaco books that I would love for you to check out. Quinn Hamp was a joyous man and a common sight at Union City Elementary School, particularly when something needed fixing. You see, he was the school custodian and he scrubbed, dusted, and polished every inch of that school. But more than that, he pleasured in doing things for the children. He helped them reach things from tall shelves, bandaged skinned knees, and even made sure that no one missed their bus when school was out. He loved the children, and he knew each and every one by name. One day, as Mr. Hamp was mopping the floor in the hallway, he heard the laughter of children. He usually loved to hear their laughter, but something wasn't right. Come and comfort, come on, waddled across the playground, one of the boys jeered. Yeah, Fatso, one of the girls chimed in. What kind of a name is Comfort anyway? They all laughed. When the children saw Mr. Hamp, they ran away. He put his arm around the shoulder of the boy. Can't help that I'm fat, the boy cried. Me either, said Mr. Hamp, chuckled. When I was a kid, I was teased too, and as I got older, it came in real handy to be substantial. He smiled broadly. You must be new. What's your name? Welcome, Comfort, the boy sputtered. Now, that isn't the warmest, most inviting name I've ever heard. Mr. Hamp grinned from ear to ear. Tell you what, if those kids keep coming and being mean to you, march right in here and you can help me do my chores. For the first time, Welcome smiled. I like that. As the days passed, Welcome spent more and more time with Mr. Hamp. Sometimes Mr. Hamp took him to lunch with him and his wife Martha, the school librarian. They lived in a sweet little house right next to the school. Welcome learned how to tie fish and Quinn and how to make birdhouses. Welcome especially loved watching Quinn carve and whittle small toys out of wood. Martha sewed a shirt for Welcome, just like Quinn's. Welcome, who moved from foster home to foster home and who never knew his real parents, felt part of a family at long last. One winter day, when the children were being mean, Welcome ran into the school and found Mr. Hamp. He was his round, happy self, putting up Christmas decorations and lights. Don't pay any mind to them. Christmas is right around the corner, Welcome, Mr. Hamp smiled. What's so great about Christmas? Welcome said. Why, boy, Christmas is the most wondrous time of the year. It never has been for me. What about family? What about presents? And what about Santa? I don't have any family. And Santa? He's not even real. Oh, he's real all right, Mr. Hamp said. Seeing is believing. Welcome looked sadly at the floor. No child believing is seeing, Mr. Hamp said with a warm smile. I've moved around so much, even if Santa was real, he wouldn't even know where to find me. Child, he'll find you. Maybe he hasn't come because you haven't believed hard enough. Mr. Hamp said it as he gave the boy a wink. As Christmas approached, Welcome practiced believing. He wished that he could spend Christmas with Martha and Quinn, but each Christmas Eve they went north. It was just something that they did every Christmas, Quinn said. They promised to spend the day after Christmas with him. On the morning of Christmas Eve, Welcome helped them pack their truck to leave. Remember what I said, kid. Believing is seeing, Quinn called to him as they left. Welcome watched them drive down St. Joe Road until he couldn't see them anymore. That evening, Welcome could hear bells ringing downtown in the Union City. He looked out his window and he saw people scurrying about doing last-minute shopping. He missed Quinn. But he remembered his words. He was going to try to believe with all of his heart that Santa would come. night, Welcome drifted off to sleep, but he'd wake every so often and say, "There really is Santa, there really is Santa." But Santa didn't come. The hours passed and Santa didn't come. But sometime deep in the night, he was awakened out of a sound sleep. He sat straight up in bed. The room was full of light. He saw a huge man standing in the center of the light at the foot of his bed. He was wearing fur and velvet, bells and holly. He had a long silky beard and his face was shining and bright. It was Santa. Santa laughed and it sounded like merry bells ringing, but he said nothing to the boy. He extended his hand and he pulled him from his bed. Then he helped the boy bundle himself up, and the next thing Welcome knew, they were on the roof of the house. Welcome didn't even know quite how they'd gotten there. Then his eyes found a beautifully carved sleigh and stomping, snorting, sleek reindeer. Santa nudged Welcome into the sleigh and then whistled to the deer. The sleigh jerked with a start and they were heading right for the edge of the roof. Welcome covered his eyes. Surely they would fall over the edge, but instead they lifted up. All Welcome could hear was the rushing of the wind past his ears. They climbed and climbed, almost if the sleigh was an airplane. Soon they were above the clouds, but Welcome could see the lights below. They were leaving Union City. Welcome could hardly believe what was happening. That night, they stopped at so many places delivering trains and dolls and games and boxes of every sort that Welcome lost count. But somehow, time didn't seem to pass the way it usually did. It seemed as if the night was forever. Soon their work was done, and they were making their long flight home. Welcome nestled into Santa's side and looked up at him. Finally, Santa spoke. "I have something for you too, Welcome." Santa pointed at a beautiful gold pin shaped like a star that was pinned on his own vest. Behind the star was the most beautiful and perfect sprig of holly that Welcome had ever seen. "This is yours," Santa said softly. Welcome looked at the pin as long as he could, but his eyelids got heavy and he drifted off to sleep. The next thing Welcome knew, he was in his bed. His clothes were hung just the way they always were. Oh no, he thought, it was only a dream. Then he remembered the pin. If Santa had really been here, the pin would be here too. He looked everywhere, in his sleeves, on the table, on the floor, but the pin was nowhere to be found. Now Welcome knew for sure that it had been a dream, a wonderful dream, but a dream just the same. "How do you know that it was a dream?" Quentin asked when he and Martha came home. That was when Welcome discovered presents by the door, and one of them, a beautifully carved fish that Quentin had made out of wood. "I know," Welcome said, "I know." He didn't tell them about the pin. As the years passed, Welcome treasured that fish for many reasons. Certainly because it was the first Christmas gift from Quentin, and because it would always remind him of the Christmas of the wonderful dream. During the next years, Martha and Quentin were the next best thing to having parents. They were so proud when he graduated from high school, delighted when he got a job in the very same school where Quentin worked. They were especially happy when Welcome married a sweet girl from over Coldwater Way, named Ruby Jean. Quentin and Welcome were always together. They fished together, carved together, and just sat and watched the sunset together. Now at the school, Welcome grew to love all the children almost as much as Quentin did, and Christmas became his most favorite time of the year. He loved helping Quentin put decorations around the school, and especially loved telling children Christmas stories. Martha and Quentin still went up north alone for Christmas Eve. "It's just something we always do," Quentin said. But Welcome and Ruby Jean spent every other moment of the season with them in front of their warm fireplace there in Union City. So there was always joy at Christmas time. But Welcome could never forget the pin. Then one year, Just as Christmas vacation grew near, the principal announced that Mr. Hamp would be retiring, stepping down as the superintendent of maintenance, and due to the recommendation of Mr. Hamp himself, Mr. Comfort will be taking his place. The school exploded into cheers. Can't think of anyone who deserves the job more than you, kid. And Quentin added, by the way, Martha and I want you and Ruby Jean to come up north with us this Christmas Eve. If only had Welcome gotten that wonderful promotion, Quentin and Martha had invited him and Ruby to be with them on Christmas Eve. You sure? He asked. We're sure, and high time, Quentin said with a wink. On Christmas Eve, after driving for the longest time, they finally arrived at the dearest little cabin at the edge of a lush forest of pine trees. They all unpacked the truck and made supper together. They nestled in front of the crackling fire. It had started to snow, and the flakes were making patterns on the windows of the cabin. Welcome was thinking, I want for nothing in the world, when Quentin handed him a beautifully wrapped small box. Open it, Martha called out. Welcome's heart almost stopped in his chest. There in the little box was a beautiful gold pin, and in the shape of a star, the clasps around a perfect sprig of holly. Where did you get this? Welcome asked breathlessly. Just put it on, boy, Quentin said as he grinned from ear to ear. Welcome pinned it to his shirt. A tingle started at the tip of his toes and moved up his legs through his heart and burst right out of the top of his head. Why, it felt as if light were pouring right out of his skin, and he felt himself laughing. A laugh that sounded like brass bells ringing and chiming in a bell tower. Welcome turned to look at himself in the parlor mirror. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. There before his eyes was the same specter that he had seen in his room on that magical Christmas Eve so many years ago. It was Santa, but this time Santa was him. Told you I was retiring, Quentin said as tears glistened in his kind eyes. I thought you meant at the school, Welcome could barely say. I did, but I meant this too. It's your time now, kid. Welcome walked outside to find reindeer gathering right next to the cabin steps. Martha was bridling the deer, and Ruby Jean was pushing bags of toys and packages up onto the sled. Don't worry, kid. After a few times, you'll know this routine like the back of your hand, Quentin said. As Welcome stepped into the sled, they all stood and watched as the sled rose. Be merry, son. Be merry and Godspeed, Quentin called up. The sleigh had disappeared into the night sky. All that was left was the sound of snow falling and the distant laughter of children everywhere. Now Welcome Comfort was a joyous man and a common sight at Union City Elementary School, particularly when something needed doing. He loved all the children at that school and knew each and every one of them by name. One day, as Mr. Comfort was building new bookcases in the library, he heard the laughter of children. Usually he loved to hear their laughter, but something was different this time. Something was not right. Then he saw a group of children gathering around one small boy. What do you think happens next? Did you know?